So in the last video we found this image of a turkey farm, which is related to my search about the Midwest, and I'm going to show you what to do with it now, and how to inspect things in Photoshop. So we're going to go to Photoshop, and I'm going to get rid of the timeline that's still on from the last project. I'm going to go to File and Open. I saved that image to the desktop. It's white_turkeys.jpg. And click Open, and you can see that it's quite large. Down here it gives the image size. It's 52 megabytes as a working image, which is a little different than if you go to, say, the desktop. You can see it's actually smaller, but Photoshop has a lot going on there, and when you're working with an image there's more information that Photoshop lays on top of that. So the disparity can be quite large. That's one component to image size. The other is the dimensions. So here are the dimensions: 5221 by 3481 pixels. And you can, if you'd like to see this in inches, you can click on the drop down. You can do it in centimeters, millimeters, points, picas, pixels, percent. We're going to switch it back to pixels. You can fit to, which we're going to ignore largely for now. However, what we're not going to ignore is the fact that the resolution is set at 72 pixels per inch. That's critical. So when we're looking at stuff on a screen, everything is 72 pixels per inch. You'll also hear people say DPI, which stands for dots per inch. Largely they're interchangeable, except for a few instances, again, that we aren't going to get into here. But just know that your screen is always displaying stuff at 72 pixels per inch. However, when we print, we're printing at, to avoid pixelation, we're printing at usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 pixels per inch, or 300 DPI. So these two numbers, the width in inches, are related to this. This is 72 inches at 72 pixels per inch. I'm going to uncheck this resample button. We'll go back to that later, but you can see when I change this to a print resolution, it actually becomes much smaller. So these dimensions are a function of how large or small the resolution is. If for some reason we needed to print at 600 DPI, the images is close to 8.5 by 6. If we wanted to print at 150 DPI, 34 by 23. So these are always going to be related. If we're going to print at 300 DPI, then we should select things, we should work in that space. So if you click OK, nothing has changed about the image. These are all essentially fictional as they're relative to each other. So you can always go back, change this to 600, click OK. It's the same image. We could change this to 5 pixels an inch, and it would be 1044 inches. Again, all theoretical right now, but we want to work in that space, so we click OK. So that is how you resize images, rescale the resolution. If we actually want to make this image 300 DPI, and we want to make it, say, 8 by 5 or some function thereof, if you click resample, what this is going to do is divest these two. So if I change this to, we'll say, 8 inches wide, you can see it was 52 megabytes. There was 52 megabytes of information. It's now 11, and the dimensions would change accordingly at this. There are also a variety of ways that Photoshop can process the image when they're enlarging or when it is reducing. For me, I think the bicubic sharper for reduction usually works the best, but again, this might depend on your image. Certainly play around. You can see in the preview window how it's going to affect your image. If we click OK, this is finite, so to go back. You can't make this 17 inches again and have it not be blurry. It's not gonna work. So you have to be very careful about when you are doing this. What we're gonna do is undo that, and we're going to go back here. You can see resamples on. It's back to our original size. Just know that when you are printing something 300, any more information than that, any more resolution than that, with rare exception, is going to be unwanted and therefore going to take longer to print. File size is going to be bloated. It's going to be harder to work with in Photoshop. So if I know definitively that I only need this to be, say, 11 inches wide, or maybe we need it 8.5 and we can crop it, for instance, I will click OK. And now the image size is about half what it was, which makes it, again, much easier for editing, much easier for printing. But be very careful when you do that, because there isn't a good way to get that information back.